So I just had a lesson with a student and we were talking about just figuring out chord voicings in one area of the fretboard, right? I figured that a lot of times us guitar players or a lot of musicians in general who are getting into music theory, they're getting into drop voicings like drop two and fours, drop three voicings, drop three and four voicings without really having a clear understanding of what intervals are, which actually do simplify things a little bit more. So I'm just gonna go over just one little approach to simplify things a little bit more. So let's say we are in the key of D. Now the first thing you want to do is have a good idea of the major scale across two octaves. So here's D major scale, one octave and two octaves, right? And again, you can play it this way also. So the next step is to know at least one form of each of our well-known seventh chords. So major seventh, minor seventh, dominant seventh, minor seven flat five, aka half diminished, and your full diminished chord, also known as diminished seventh. Now let's say you have learned this particular shape of the major seventh where you have root, fifth, major seven, and third. And again, like for the timing, we're not going to go into where it's coming from and all of that. Just know it and then analyze where the chord tones are. So we got our root, we got our fifth, we got our major seventh, and we got our third. If you have to turn this into a minor seven chord, we basically just flat the third. Our third was on top here. So we flat that, and then we also have to flat the seven. This is where a seven was. So we flat the seven. And we're left with so major seventh and minor seven. Now to turn this into, let's say, a dominant seven, we keep everything intact, but we make the flat third a natural third. So we're left with, and then we got our minor seven flat five, which basically means that we flat the five and the third from here, right? And then lastly we have our diminished seventh chord, which is basically a diminished triad. So root, flat three, and flat five, along with a double flat seven. Another way of looking at a double flat seven is a major six. Now we already have a flat seven right here, so we just further flat that, and we have our diminished seventh chord. Cool. So now let's talk about adding tensions to these chords, your 9s, 11s, 13s, etc. Right? On the guitar or on any instrument for that matter, we usually try to limit a chord voicing between 4 to 5 notes, not beyond that. To my ears, that just becomes a little too much, honestly speaking. So we limit it to that. So now let's say you want to play a major 7 with a 9. And you already know this particular voicing of the major 7th chord. Now, your 9 is basically your 2. So the closest chord tone to the 9 is your third. So you can replace the third with the 2 right here, giving you that particular voicing. Now, let's say you still want the third. I can see that I have a 5 on the 4th string, which can go down to a third right there. So I have root, third, major 7, and 9 right here. And of course, the same thing, it's much easier to see it on a piano. Let's say if I take the same voicing, so we had root, right? And then we had our 5, so that's an A note. And then we have our major 7, which is a C sharp. And then finally, we had our third, which is an F sharp. So that was the chord. And what I did was I replaced the third right here with the 2. So we're left with, that was the chord that I just played first. Or then I replaced the 5th with a third. So here's my third. So now my voicing is that. So root, third, major 7th, and my 9. So root, third, major 7, and my 9. Let's take another one of these chord qualities. Let's say the minor 7 flat 5 chord. So here's the minor 7 flat 5. So root, flat 5, flat 7 and flat third. Right. And let's say I want to add an 11 to it. So I can see that the 4 or the 11 is closer to the flat 3. So I can just simply replace this flat 3 with the 4 right here. And I have a pretty nice chord voicing right here. Now, as I kept doing these things, you probably noticed that all of this was happening across 2 octaves, which is why I mentioned at the beginning that it's always ideal to know your major scale across 2 octaves, and you should know where each scale tone is. Root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and the root again across 2 octaves. Because if you know that by heart, it's going to be much easier for you to find out your tensions, and it's going to be much easier for you to find out your chord tones and jumble them around rather than thinking of drop 2s or drop 3 and 4s, drop 4, whatever. So if you can just mess around with things by themselves just like that, and later on learn what drop voicings are. For example, a drop 2 basically means you take a 7th chord and then drop the second note from the top down an octave. That's what a drop 2 means. So you got to visualize it on the staff. So root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, second note from the top, that's your 5th. So 5 goes down an octave. So your voicing becomes 5, root, 3rd, 7th. Right. Now, when you learn it that way, it can of course be a little confusing. So hopefully this particular method will simplify things for you, and then you can connect the dots later on to understand drop voicings a little better, because everything that you're getting out of this is gonna be some kind of a drop voicings. And then you might ask that, hey, like the first voicing that I played, that was a drop 2 voicing, how did you come up with that? I mean, we're living in a world that's literally run by the internet. Just simply search major 7th shape on the internet on the guitar and you'll get it. And in Western music, everything is movable anyway. So if you're learning a shape, chances are it's movable across all 12 keys in the same string set. Try not to complicate things so much more for yourself and just work this out. Right, hopefully this was helpful. If you want to take private lessons with me, learn more about this and a lot more things, like many more things, get in touch with me. My details are in the description below. You can call or WhatsApp me, and we will figure things out. I'll give you all the details regarding the lessons. And if this video was helpful, consider liking the video and consider sharing it, and please consider subscribing to our channel. That really helps. So yeah, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.